Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video we're going to be making a card today using these gorgeous new embossing powders from Wow. They're inspired by Funky Fossil. They're called the Timeless Trio. There's three embossing powders that we'll have a look at a little bit later on. And I'm going to be using them with this gorgeous horse stencil and then this gorgeous like flying clock stencil as well. So I've already cut a card panel down to size and I'm just bringing in my Waffle Flower Grip Mat just to hold the stencil in place. Now, when I bought my grip mat, for some reason, I don't think I checked the size. I really wish I'd have bought a slightly bigger one, just so that it fits my 6x6 stencils properly. However, it still works absolutely fine with the smaller stencils, but I would highly recommend getting one of these if you do a lot of stenciling. They're absolutely brilliant. So I'm just coming in with some Distress Oxide. I'm using Speckled Egg and Hickory Smoke. And I'm just kind of blending the Speckled Egg from the centre out into the grey on the outside. And then I'm just adding a little bit of stenciling in the top right-hand corner and the top left-hand corner, just so that it kind of breaks up the white space a little bit. So you can see it's stenciled. The stencil's beautiful. So I'm just spritzing my grip mat with some water, wiping it off with my e-cloth. And then I'm able to just bring in my panel back again and stick that back down. And then I'm going to bring in this horse stencil. Now I just use the cut out middle part just to kind of work out where I want the horse to be. And then I'm able just to press that stencil down on my grip mat. Now this is where you'll see having a bigger size would have been a bit more helpful when you're using something like a texture paste, because my stencil does lift a little bit at the sides. It is holding it in place, but it does lift, and it wouldn't do that if the grip mat was a little bit bigger. So just something to bear in mind if you are considering purchasing one. I'm just making sure that I've got a really smooth coverage of the texture paste here. It's just the Ranger opaque white texture paste, and I'm just using a palette knife and I'm just making sure it's nice and smooth. When I lift that off, you can see that it's stenciled beautifully and you've got that lovely solid image of the horse. So I've left that aside to dry, and once it's dry I'm coming back in with my anti-static powder bag because we're going to do some heat embossing on the texture paste. So I've got my Versamark and I'm just pushing that through the stencil all over the horse. I've brought the stencil back in to make this easier, and then I know that I've just got the embossing ink just on the horse. And this is where we're going to come in with this gorgeous trio of embossing powders. So the first colour that I'm going in with is Tarnished Treasure. I then go over it again with Copper Mine, and then I'm just going to add some of the Rock Solid just to finish off this. And I love mixing embossing powders together like this. I think it gives a lovely variation of colours and textures. It's really nice. So I'm just heating it from behind because there are some ultra high particles in these embossing powders, and obviously if I heat straight from the top they are just going to fly off. So once the powder kind of starts to grip from behind, I then come in with my heat tool over the top and just go all over the texture paste. You'll see that it's bubbling. If you don't like that effect, then you could just heat emboss without using texture paste, but I actually don't mind it, and you do find that the bubbles settle down a little bit as it cools. So you end up with this gorgeous, sparkly, textured horse. And I love the fact that the darker coloured embossing powders really caught like the mane and the tail, and so it gives a really beautiful effect. Now I've come back in with the stencil because I thought I would use the sentiment that's on it, which says Tempus Fugit, which is Latin for time flies, and I've used the Versamark embossing ink with a sponge just through it. I'm coming in with some black embossing powder here just so that it's nice and embossed and shiny, but I decide that I don't like the sentiment. I can't find a way of making it fit on the card panel. I think the font just doesn't really fit the overall style of the card, and it is quite a big sentiment, so I was really struggling to kind of find a way of placing it on the card. Now I wouldn't have left it stark white, I would have ink blended around the edges just to kind of give it a little bit of a border, but in the end I just decided that it's just not going to work on this card. So what I do instead is I bring in this gorgeous stamp set from Funky Fossil Designs. This is the Free Spirit stamp set. It was designed by Ankit, Kumar. The artwork is just beautiful, and it's got this sentiment in it that says stay wild, and I just decide that that's a much better fit. It fits nicely in that bottom right hand corner, which is where I wanted my sentiment to go, and so I decided to go ahead and use that. So I inked that up with some black Versafine Onyx black ink, and then I decide I'm going to clear heat emboss that with some Wow Superfine Clear embossing powder. That just keeps the sentiment nice and black and shiny, and so that it stands out from the stenciled background. So once that's heat set, I'm then going to bring in this Checkboard Collage Stamp Set just to add some black stamping around the edge of the card front. I really want to create a border, and this is a great way sometimes if you feel that your card's missing something, just add in a little bit of stamping around the edge of the card really kind of can frame it, just adds some extra interest and just creates a border that's, you know, a little bit different to just adding a matte layer. It just adds a little bit more texture, a little bit more interest. So I do quite like using this, and I love the fact that on the edge of this stamp you've got a little bit of text, a little bit of numbers, a little bit of like checkered marks. So yeah, it's just a great way of just kind of adding that around the edge. I am using Versafine Onyx black ink here to do that, and I've placed a scrap of paper underneath just so that I don't end up with black ink on my desk, on my glass mat, and then because the mat's black and you can't see it, I'll often end up making a bit of a mess. So once I've done that, I'm just going to go around the edges with the ink pad, and that just kind of frames it nicely. And then I'm just going to add a few black splatters using some black acrylic paint and a paintbrush. I'm just watering it down a little bit, and then I'm just using my paintbrush just to flick some black splats on there. I'm then just coming in with a piece of kitchen towel just to wipe off the acrylic paint from the embossed horse, because I don't want the paint to dry on there. And then I'm able just to stick this down to a black matte layer. Now, I'm very particular about trying to make sure my borders are really nice and even. It really bothers me if they're not. And because when I look at this, I just find that it's not quite straight. The border's it's just not good. So I tear it off and I start again. I cut another layer of black cardstock, and then I'm just able to stick that down again. So if you can grab it quickly before it's dried, you are able to peel it off. No one sees the mess that's been made on the back of the card front, so you don't have to worry about that. And then I'm just able to wipe off any excess glue that's kind of oozed out the sides before it dries. And then that is the finished card front. So I attach it down to a card blank that's 6x6. And then that is the finished card for today. So thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you some inspiration. Please don't forget to like if you've enjoyed the video and leave a comment below. I really enjoy reading all the comments that are left for me. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.